Welcome to the Whole Enchilada, a community of high achievers that fight the status quo, rebel against mediocrity, and make life happen. Let's go.
Hey, Enchilada Nation, welcome back to another episode. I know I said every week that I'm excited about my guest, but that is true and remains true for our conversation today. And as you know, I'm just committed to finding people that inspire me and excite me. And because you're part of the community, I am confident that the people I'm bringing to the table hopefully are going to inspire you as well. One of the reasons I'm really excited about this conversation with Chase today is we're going to cover two topics that are really on my mind right now, which are culture and leadership, which I've been really proud of culture and leadership inside of my organizations historically, and I see a need to evolve them. I see both of those things needing to shift and change right now in my world, so it's causing me to spend a lot of time in that thought process. And so I'm really excited about jumping into this conversation. So Chase, first of all, thank you for taking the time to meet with me. I know you're super busy.
Absolutely. It's my pleasure.
So just a quick background on Chase. This is Chase Delperdang out of Tucson, Arizona, runs a massive real estate team, team integrity there with his partner, Jenny Adams, she's equally as impressive as you. She's just a sharp businesswoman.
You can say exponentially more.
Yeah. Well, I've been impressed with both of you. I'll let you guys argue it out of who's better. But you guys, I was really honored that you guys invited me out to your team event last year.
Yep.
And as you know, I get an opportunity to talk to a lot of different groups. And it's so interesting to me, within a few minutes, you can feel an energy of a group, a team, or how those people came together. And it was the culture with your team was just palpable. Like,
yeah.
It was obvious that no one was forced to be in the room of just like, oh man, they're asking me to be here, so I guess I'll be here to check the box. It was legitimately people cared about each other. And a lot of times that's easier, just to give people some clarity. That could be an easier feeling with a small group of people, but man, how many people were in the room that day?
40, 42, something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I was going to guess between 40 and 50 people, and they legitimately cared about each other. And like, it was pretty dang awesome. So before we jump into the culture piece, I would love for you to give a little bit of a background to our group of who you are, how you got into real estate, some of your background, so that gives some context to our conversation today.
Yeah. Grew up in San Diego. I'm the third generation in the real estate industry. My grandfather owned a brokerage in San Diego, and my dad started in the basement of a title company in high school and just out of high school, and worked his way up to becoming the president of one of the largest title companies called Stewart Title. And then in 97, moved to Tucson. My dad took over the region over here. And if I knew one thing, I'd never wanted to work in a title company or in the real estate industry. My first job was filing microfilm in the basement of Stewart Title. I still have the cuts on my fingers to prove it. Like, that was my job in the basement, and want to have nothing to do with real estate. And fast forward a little over a decade ago, I'd worked at churches for about 15 years and spoke and whatnot. And one of the things about most nonprofits is they're not profitable. So I got my real estate license, knowing that, literally because I knew that my kids had half of my genes and would eventually need braces, and I could not afford it. So that's my like glamorous burning bush moment of how I got licensed. And it was, if I could sell a house a year, put braces on my kids, I'd be good. And it took off. Within about 8 to 10 months, I had 2 buyer's agents and just never spent a penny on leads. Everything was sphere of influence. And then got a call from my now mentor. This was in 2016 by a guy named Anthony Azar, who owned the region down here for Keller Williams, and asked me if I'd interview for a team leader CEO position, and did that for a while. And it came very natural and easy for me. It just felt like there was a lot of correlation between pastoring and running a market center. Like, you love your people, you try to serve them, you listen to them. And then got in a business with a guy named Aaron and Jenny, my business partner, with Team Integrity. And then a couple years ago, Jenny and I purchased the real estate team as a whole. Jenny, my business partner, is phenomenal. She started as a TC admin, and now co-owns a team that will do over 500 units a year. So she's a rock star.
That's awesome. I love the history there of, people a lot of times see you where you're at
Yeah.
and just assume it just started there, right? I love that how you're showing up as a leader is a result of that path that you took to get there.
Yeah.
Which is pretty cool.
Yeah. We, a couple things. I love teaching and communicating. I'm a KW university approved trainer, and get to travel and teach. And Jenny and I's personalities just match very well. And we're different in a lot of aspects personality wise, but our North Star, like what guides us in regards to the culture of the team and leadership principles, are aligned. And I think that's what the secret sauce comes in.
Yeah, I love that. And I know you also are a leader on the field with your boys, do some football coaching as well.
Yeah, I love. My daughter's 15 now, and I started coaching her for softball when she was 4, maybe 5, and so probably for the last decade, been coaching the kids. I coach tackle football for my youngest right now, and it is just. It is my favorite thing to do. Like, we get monsoons down here in Tucson and right now, and we'll get rained out. And I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to do with my night? Like, can we figure out something with the kids? So it's coaching youth sports is one of the most rewarding things I get to do in my entire life.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that you're having an impact on not just your own kids, but other kids out there too. I'm sure the parents just love that you're out there with their kids.
Yeah, we always say there's less than 1% chance they'll ever make it to the show, but there's 100% chance that they need to be a good, productive human being later on in life. And we're going to tackle that aspect of it. And then we'll do everything. And we do like a word of the week, what is accountability? What is resiliency? And and this was last year at 10U. So these 10-year-old boys, there's 32 of them. For this tackle season, we will have more time and influence in their life than their parents typically. And we don't take that lightly. We're trying to raise great young men and put them in the face of competition and learn how to win with grace and lose well as well.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, it's something you don't think about a lot when your kids are little, because you have so much control of their input, right?
Yeah.
And then you're waiting a lot of times for their output to show up later, so you have so much influence. But man, it is such a blessing when there's another adult comes into your kids' lives that are also building them up and reinforcing those values. And that's makes me, even though I've got all girls, it makes me want to put them on your football team.
It's just
I love hearing that.
It's fun, and it is. I have that with my daughter now that she's a little bit older, but seeing these kids grow up that I coached when they were 6U softball, wearing tutus and running the wrong direction on the bases, and seeing those as 15-year-old young women now. And I'm starting to see some of the rewards of that, where they come up and see and be like, man, I miss when you coached me. Like, that is, it's such a heartwarming thing.
Yeah. Well, let's jump into this conversation around culture, and I'd love to hear as we talk through this, not only the culture on your team, but I love the culture you're creating on the field with your family. And I feel like the word culture is almost a little overused in business in general right now, of just like, oh, it's our culture, but nobody's really taking the time to like really define what their culture is. It's not likability. It's not just having fun. It's not just being part of an organization. But I'm curious from your perspective, like how do you define culture? And then let's get into a conversation around how do you create it?
Yeah, I think one of the ways I define culture is the cues and clues, the things that happen that are unspeakable, right? Those are, what are the norms without even having to open your mouth? Like, that to me is what culture is. And the culture is, sometimes you can't identify what your culture is until it's broken, or until somebody out of culture comes into your organization. And it feels like when you put on like a shirt that maybe has shrunk too much, or because we don't gain weight. If it shrunk and it wasn't our fault, and it's like the sleeves don't fit right, like you lift your hands and it rises, it's just awkward. Um, I think when you have those moments, it allows you to really identify what your culture is because it feels so out of norm and just out of place.
Yeah.
So defining culture is like, what are the cues and clues of your organization, or your family unit or whatever, that without even having to like give direction, it happens.
Mm.
I used to,
I, oh, please go ahead.
I use this example a lot is growing up. I would invite friends over and they'd go to sit at the dinner table, and they wouldn't have a shirt on because we were playing outside or something like that. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you got to put a shirt on. Like that's the
Yeah.
culture of our family. Like nobody sits at the table. Like my dad never had to tell us after 4 years old to put a shirt on. It was the culture.
Yeah.
It was what we did.
Yeah.
So little things like that, like that's the culture. Like culture for us is you show up, you do what you say you're going to do, you put your numbers in, you treat clients with a fiduciary responsibility, not just a functionary responsibility. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I think that's a great example. And if we could take that example of coming to the dinner table with a shirt off, like obviously people should be coming to your work meetings with a shirt on,
yeah,
but
hopefully,
it's a smaller item, right? More than likely, there's nothing in your procedure manual that says you've got to wear a shirt to our team meeting, but it just becomes part. I think there's this part of a culture of us writing a mission statement of these fancy words, but then how are people actually showing up? And they're two different things.
yeah. So for us, like we don't have anywhere in our PNGs that say don't be flashy, right? The culture of our team is we are not selling sunset flashy people.
Yep.
We are client first in all aspects, and we take our fiduciary duty at a very high level that it's client first even above our own interest. So we don't repeat that, we don't say that. That is it. Like that
Yeah.
that is our culture. We show up, we show up to appointments. We show up when we're supposed to be there. We do daily numbers every day, Monday through Friday. The culture is you show up to daily numbers and you put your numbers in ahead of time so we can go over them as an organization. Um, you, we are a culture of selflessness, of helping each other out. So we don't have this like our communication platform. We use GroupMe. When someone puts in there, hey, I'm 50 minutes away. Somebody needs to get in for an inspection at a house last minute. Can you open the door? There's no form we send over for the $50 agreement to do so. We just do it. We're a family. We take care of each other. I'm going to need something today. You're going to need something tomorrow, and we're going to help each other out with those things.
So like someone joins because you've created this. It's the norm. The cues and clues are there for your team. Somebody joins your organization. Like how do they get entrenched in that? Is it a culture shock for them? Is it
No.
you're
So
really running them through a filter to make sure they're in
yeah.
alignment before the hire?
Yeah. So I always give this example is 99% of marriages where you meet on the Las Vegas Strip on Friday, you go to the Whitechapel on Saturday and get married. Like they typically don't last. Some
Yeah.
do maybe, but most. But when you court somebody, they the probability of lasting is much higher. So one is we don't hire a lot. This year we have hired 3 people and we're in August.
Yep.
So we don't hire a lot, and when we do, we put them through the career visioning process, and we will pull their KPA, their background. We'll do I'll interview with them, and then if they make it past me, Jenny and I will interview with them, and if it makes it past that, they'll do a group interview with our leadership and our admin team, and then after that, we will say, okay, like what are the red flags? What's green? Like what are we benign about? And we'll see if they're a fit. We'll have them jump on daily numbers. We'll have them come to team meetings. I've sat with agents that are great producing agents that say I'm looking for a place to hang my license by the end of the week, and we say we know you're a great agent. You will find a good fit. It's just not for us. We don't move fast in that aspect.
Yeah.
We protect our culture at all cost, and so one of the misconceptions is that organizations don't have culture or it's good culture. Whenever you bring somebody on, culture will change. Your culture will never ever remain the same when you bring a human into the mix, another body.
Yep.
You get to decide if it's going to positively impact your culture or negatively impact your culture. There is the non-negotiable. It's just how it works is when you bring a human being into your organization, culture will change. It just will. You're adding a dynamic. If you put the work in ahead of time, it's gonna change for the positive. And we're very adamant and protective about that, just as much as in our household, we wouldn't just invite somebody off the street to come live in our guest bedroom without getting to know and vet them yet. And we take. You hear this a lot, Marcus. Like, my team is my family. Like you hear that a lot. And you felt this at first glance. Like, we are a family. Like, we take care of each other. We go to kids' sporting events. We watch kids. My daughter helps coach volleyball with our admin. Like, we take care of each other at a high level, which is why we have a very low attrition rate.
Man, you just gave me a big aha that in regards to culture. A lot of times we hear this phrase is, I want to make sure they're a match for my culture, or if they match my culture. And what I heard you just say is, by inviting someone into the world, I'm already accepting that my culture is going to change. The question shouldn't be, do they match my culture? It's, do they contribute to the culture, or do they make the culture better, or are they going to diminish it? Every single person is going to add to it or diminish the culture.
Yeah, right. Like when your daughter brings a friend over to stay the night, the culture of your house changes for a little bit.
Yeah.
Things are a little bit different. Like it just is what it is. And depending on that friend, it's either going to cause a big mess and it's going to be 10 times louder and it's going to be chaos, or you have the friend that comes over and it's like, it is so enjoyable when you're over here. You're just such a pleasant person. Yeah. But the culture has changed a little bit.
Yeah. I love that.
It never stays the same.
So when you're introducing someone to the team, it's always interesting to me. Like when someone's interviewing for one of my organizations, in their mind, they think what they want to hear is like, what's in it for me? Yeah. Show me your track record. Do you produce? How much money is everyone making on your team? Is the opportunity there? Like how? And I think those are things that are important to go through with the person to make sure that their needs can be met. But how do you portray like what the culture is at the onset of the conversation? Like how do you define that to somebody that hasn't experienced it yet?
Yeah. So this is where I believe that we're different, and huge asterisk, like Barry Bonds asterisk, like this will sound egotistical, but it's not. Our number one goal is to have people in our current organization make as much money as they possibly can and hit all their goals before we bring another person into the organization. Mm-hmm. That's our responsibility as leaders, is to put that at the top of our list. The people that they have entrusted their business with us already, we need to help them. We need to serve them. So with that being said, is we don't go out and really run ads. We don't go do big recruiting events. Most all of our leads are inbound or agents that want to join the team. And we have flipped it. Okay. So we know what we have, and we feel like we're the top team in our market. Like, we feel like it's an honor to be a part of Team Integrity because we have a high standard and a great culture. So when I meet with somebody, like, I'm trying to decide if they're going to be a fit for us, not if we're interviewing them if they want to join our team. It's not like it's flipped. And what I've found with that is people that appreciate that are typically cultural fits for us because they get it.
Yeah.
And anybody that we have interviewed that has tried to speed up the process, it eventually comes out that it wasn't a good fit. And like we brought 2 agents on that had worked together prior, and we told them it's not going to be a fast process, and we're going to put you through the ringer of meeting everybody for you and us as well. And when they said, that's great, that's what I want. Like, I want to make sure this is a long-term fit. Like, those are music to my ear. That's music to my ears.
Yeah. I love that. And it's always interesting to me that a lot of times what people say and what people do don't match up. And I think that can
Yeah.
happen on an individual level, and I think it can happen on a organizational
Oh
level
yeah.
too, right?
Yeah. So
Um,
that's why we do like, we do a legitimate 30, 60, 90, and we're not perfect at it by any means, but like, I give this example is I love steak. Like I'm just a meat guy.
yeah, yeah,
I could fake being a vegetarian for 30 days, probably 60. Like I'm sneaking beef jerky in my pocket to work.
yeah,
But by day 90, like I'm having a hamburger at lunch with everybody. So
yeah,
when we meet with people, we're like, hey, we're going to hire you for 90 days. And this is going to be a vetting process and period to see if you're a good fit for us, and to also see if you still like us after 90 days. Because
yeah,
45 days in, you could say, man, those guys are a bunch of whack jobs. I don't want to be in business with them. So
yeah.
that, I think that's a crucial part to our protecting our culture as well.
Awesome. I love that. So, because I love the term you use, the cues and clues.
Yeah.
How quickly do the cues and clues, both either in a positive way or a negative way, start showing up when someone comes onto your team? And what are they?
Um, One is so we have a lot of um, flexibility in the timeline of metrics to get turned on to leads and whatnot. So if somebody comes on our team, they've got to present the purchase contract with the broker, which most teams don't do. They
Yep.
have to present the listing presentation, buyer presentation to myself and our listing manager. So we have some of these barriers, and they say, when do I do that by? And we say, that's up to you.
Mm,
If you feel like you're ready to go in 5 days, we'll do it in 5 days. But we're leaving this aspect on you. So that's one. If we're 3 weeks in and they're still not presenting any contracts or buyer presentation, like that's a big one. How do they show up? Do they show up late? Do they show up early? Like, what does that look like? And we put a lot on their plate of, we want you to go shadow a buyer presentation from somebody. If it's 2 weeks in and you haven't asked a single agent on the team if you want to do that, the initiative's not there. So by putting task on them with their own timeline, that's a cue and clue to show up if they're going to be a self-accountable person, which we are as an organization.
yep.
And then scripting. We're not looking for perfect scripting off the bat. And we're scripting. We don't have script books. We're not
Yep.
that. It's like this. It's conversations every morning. We're not reading off something, but like, what are they talking about? Like,
Yep.
are they client first? So those show up fairly quick.
If you are enjoying this conversation, please, who do you know that you can share this episode with today that will find value in it and would also like to join us on our journey to become the best version of ourselves? And don't forget, please like and subscribe, because this helps me get in front of more people just like you to continue to grow our network in our Enchilada Nation. Thanks again. Let's get back to the episode. Yeah, I love some of the things you're saying. So, like, and what's going through my mind as you're saying this is, if you didn't, that you use some words to define what your culture is. Like, for example, one of them is we want them to be self-accountable. Like, we don't want
Absolutely.
to have to overly define timelines and things like that. We just want to have confidence they're going to do it. So if, for example, if one of the descriptive words of someone on your team, like the ideal avatar for your team, is self-accountable, I love that you've built into your 30, 60, 90 of like, well,
Absolutely.
how do we prove that? And I love this idea of like, we want you to get this done, but it's on your timeline. Like, looking at my organization, one of the things we look for when we're hiring someone is off of the ideal team player: humble,
Mhm.
hungry, and smart.
Yeah.
If I want to find out someone's hungry and I give them like, hey, it's a requirement that we want you to present the purchase contract to the broker, a hungry person is going to be in there within the week of like, well, I got to get this done before I'm closing deals, so I'm going to set it up this week, versus someone that's not hungry who could be like, well, I'll get to it when I get to it. Or are they really going to hold me accountable to this? I don't know.
Well, and there's different personalities of, I'm the personality of, once I think it's like 51% good, I'm going to just attempt to do it and see where I need to fix it. Then there's
Yep.
other personalities where it's like, I need to make sure I have this down to a T before I present it to anybody, meaning the
Yep.
broker. So we allow for that. We know that Marcus, I'm sure you've seen this in your Mark centers time and time again. Whoever you think is going to be a great real estate agent, like, they can fail and never sell a house. And you're like,
Yeah.
I thought based off the 4 degrees, their previous job history, they would be great. Then there's other people that walk in, you're like, this guy couldn't sell a pack of gum,
Yeah.
and they're your top producer, you know?
Yeah.
So
Totally.
that's one where we've realized is we can't look at somebody and based off of a conversation think they're going to be great. We got to give them time to show up or not.
Yeah. Well, I think this is a huge mistake I made early on in my career. Is my ego made me think that the perfect team would be 20 of me, exactly me. But then over time, I've learned that, and this is on a bigger scale. I've learned that one of the greatest gifts God has given man is that we're all different,
Yeah.
and the things that I'm not good at, he's introduced people into my world that are good at that, and because they're good at it, it compliments me, it blesses me. Like my wife is so different than I am in so many ways, but I consider her such a gift because she balances me out in so many ways. And I think that's true for a team too. If I had a
Yeah.
team of 20 of me, it would be a miserable team. We're doing a couple things really well and a lot of things falling apart. So I think there's that point you made of
Yeah.
people being wired differently. It actually completes the team. It completes the culture by having some broad things there. But there's got to be some commonality that is like everyone has to hit these marks, but we also embrace this difference between people.
Yeah. Like our leadership team is, we met with them this morning. Like an example is Jess is young 30s, mid 30s, and Sheila just turned 50 yesterday. Like we're different ends of life right there.
Yeah.
And I look at our team. We just had some team pictures taken, and I look at those pictures, and I go, we look like you just grabbed everybody at the supermarket and made them sit and took a picture. We are so unique, so different. Like we're not uniform, but again, that's what adds to culture. I think that's why we do so well is if we're all the same personality, we're only going to be able to attract a certain type of client.
Yeah.
Versus we're so unique, so different that I can get a referral from you and go, it needs to go to him today and her tomorrow based off of the personality of the client.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. So we talked a little bit about like when you're hiring someone, you have an obligation as a leader to protect the culture.
Yes.
When you hire someone, you're running them through this filter, 30, 60, 90, the cues and clues are showing up. But how does the protecting the culture internally happen with people that have been on the team forever? Because there's, people's lives change, their motivation changes, their life circumstances change. Like, how do you hold it accountable inside the team on a regular basis to make sure that the team stays in integrity? Yeah. Not to use the it matches this conversation.
It's a great question, and we've had that right with the organization our size. You have people that have life happens to them. Some people it happens to them back to back to back. One, I believe, is that we show them the same grace that we've been afforded, and when you show that grace to people, the credible buy-in to the organization expands immensely, right? Because we are in a business world, and people think that once you stop performing, you need to be kicked out. But for us, it's about the people. It's about the families. I can tell you every single person's spouse, if they have one, and their kids and what their hobbies are, what they do, like that's important for us. And I mentioned before is like Jenny and I lead how we parent. If my boy fails on the football field and is failing a class, I don't go, well, you're out of the family, bud. Like you didn't hold up your end of the bargain. It's more of like okay, let's have a conversation. Let's talk about your goals. Let's talk about your vision for the rest of this year and the metrics that you're having. And so one thing is our agents come up with their own goals. So we don't have a team goal. If we have 40 agents and at our summit in September, like you were at, we will add those up and that's our goal.
Yep.
And I use this analogy all the time. So, or not now, this story all the time. One of my buddies, Bubba, he was my first friend I met in 8th grade when I moved out to Tucson. He's on our real estate team up in Phoenix. And we do vision boards every year, and he wasn't doing the activities he needed to hit his vision board. So I met with him and I said, hey, which one of these are you going to scratch off because you're not willing to do the activities to meet those? And he goes, I don't want to. I go, well, let's choose Disneyland because that's the most expensive one out of all these. And by the way, let's call Stephanie, your wife, and I want you to tell her that we're not going to Disneyland as a family because I'm unwilling to do the activities every day to get me there. And right, pain versus pleasure, it's like, I'm going to do the activities.
Yeah.
And did a great
Yeah.
job. But it wasn't like this rub. It wasn't this negative thing. It's like, Bubba, I love you as a human before a team integrity member. And as a leader, my obligation is to help you hit your goals for you and your family. And if you don't hit these, like, I own a part of that DNA as well. So we together as an organization are going to do that. So I say this a lot. Everybody likes the results of accountability. They don't like the way accountability feels.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody likes the results. They don't like the way it feels. Everybody loves to stare at themselves in the mirror and see the six pack. They don't like the way it feels getting to that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, with that being said, it's a lot easier to do if you're shouldering the burden, the yoke with somebody to get you to that goal. And I feel like as an organization, we are all rowing in the same direction now, such that when it burns and it hurts and you're in the suck, you're in it with somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's such an important piece with leadership, and like culture cannot happen without leadership. Like somebody's got to have the vision of it.
Culture will happen. It'll just be bad culture.
Great point, right? Great point. The ideal culture can't happen without
Correct.
great leadership.
Yep.
And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think a lot of times we think, oh, my team has culture. You're right. Every team has culture, but
everyone
does
does.
culture you want.
Exactly.
But with that scenario you talked about, I think so many leaders are scared to have that conversation of, hey, let's call your wife and tell her you're not going to Disneyland this year, because they haven't earned the right. They haven't done the activities. They haven't shouldered the burden with them enough for them to say, well, I know Chase is having this conversation with me out of love, and our culture is such that I give him permission to hold me accountable this way. So
yeah,
like as a leader, how do you earn the right for that conversation? Because I feel like a lot of people are missing that conversation right now. And I'll throw this on top of it too, is I think a lot of people are refusing to have that conversation with themselves and self-leadership right now too.
Yeah. So the two words is credible buy-in. If you don't have credible buy-in with somebody, you can't speak into their lives. An example is if I fly to Salt Lake right now and go to speak to some of your team and I'm like, hey, we're calling your wife right now. They're gonna be like, who is this guy? And get him out. But once you earn the right over long-term credible buy-in, you also earn the right to course correct and speak into their lives. And those are little things like you show up to their kids' stuff. Like you support them. When it's the first day of school and they're driving 3 kids to 3 different schools and it's stressing them out, and you send them a $10 Starbucks gift card because you just want to tell them that you love them, you appreciate them, you know that you're a phenomenal mom. Like those are the little pieces of credible buy-in where it's like, oh, this is beyond business. And
Yeah.
like, I think if I were to write a book, it'd be called Beyond Business. Like that is, if you want good culture, it's produced over time with trust. It's just part of it. And unfortunately, the like 5 levels of leadership, right? That pinnacle leader is one that is a servant, that is shouldering it with them. It's not somebody that is positional and has a name badge.
Yeah. It's so funny you brought up 5 levels of leadership, because I was going through in my head right there, just like, all right, if someone gives you permission to have that conversation, but then is one thing, but if they've seen you have that conversation with someone else that changed their life, now you're on production-based leadership with them, where they're like, okay, I give him permission to have this conversation with me, and I've seen results from his leadership in other ways. Now it's the next level conversation. And then if he's going to make me better, now it's the 4th level of leadership, which is people production leadership, right? Yeah. It's just so funny you brought that book up, because that's literally what was going through my head as you were going through that process.
And a lot of people don't they don't push through the hard, is what I've realized, especially relationally. Like with especially within the business realm, is like we feel like we have to separate or that rather the person and the production is the same. Like I can I cannot be ecstatic about your production and the activities that you're unwilling to do, but I can still love you as a person. And you as a person and as a human is more my priority than your production. But I do know that as a person, you have responsibilities and a commitment that you made. So I want to help you do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I love that you're talking through this. Like I sat down with one of my leaders last week, and we have these in one of my organizations. We have these three buckets that we like really focus on that have been like the pillars of our culture. And I sat down with her and I said, I think something's missing with this evolution of our culture. And I drew a box around those three pillars. And I said, the three pillars are still them, but what's all the filler around these
Yeah,
pillars? Like, what are all the little things of knowing the wife's birthday and their favorite candy and what is on their vision board this year? Of like the results of them hitting these three pillars is all the personal things that are important to them, and we've got to embrace
absolutely.
that at a deeper level. And I think that's
Yeah.
something you guys have done really well.
The memories are made in the margins. And that's something that I kind of a phrase that I live by is the memories are made in the margins. When I use this with my daughter, and when she was doing volleyball, I'm busy, she's busy with school and then volleyball practice and whatnot. Like I have a 15-minute drive home that is a margin time where I can create memories with her. So it's no different than leading our people. Is um, go sit with them, call them, talk to them, ask them how everything's going, their dreams, hopes, and ambitions. See how. And the other part too is sometimes you're just that person of peace where when you know that Sally needs something and John on your team has it, like you can be the connector, and
Mm,
that's where you create culture. When it's
yeah.
not always um, positional leadership and you helping them out, right? There's that book by Osborne, Sticky Church or Sticky Teams, and
Yep.
like when you create more points of connectivity, it increases the culture such that people don't want to leave and the back door closes.
And that's where I think that's like the key that makes retention so high is if I leave the organization, I'm not just choosing to step away from Chase's leadership.
No,
I'm
no,
stepping away from what I can get from all of these people
my
and what these people mean to me.
yeah, and I think that if you were to poll our people, is they would say like if I left the organization, I feel like I'm leaving a family,
Yeah.
and that is when times are hard, which we've seen in shifting markets, and I don't think we're at the end of it by any means. Um, when you have those points of connectivity and things get hard, you actually lean into each other versus start to become islands.
I love that. I'm making a note of that. So let me ask you this question as I've got a page and a half of notes here. Let me ask you this question as we start to kind of wrap up our conversation. So obviously you guys have done such a great job with this and continue to work on it, and it's a living organism within your
Yep.
organization. Let's put your coaching hat on for a
Okay.
minute to that entrepreneur or that agent that has had a small team fall apart several times, or their production's down right now and they're trying to figure out like, am I going to keep the people on my team or do I make a hire? Or like how would you coach somebody to say I need to create a culture that lasts and I'm starting from ground zero? Like where would you coach somebody to start?
I would say you need to look internal. Is everything rises and falls on leadership? So get grab those 5 people that speak into your life the most, and say, I need you to have an honest 360-degree opinion of where I'm winning and where I'm losing, areas of improvement, because typically leaders have you you have to have some type of crazy ego a little bit to actually like think these things can succeed. Like there's something that there's got to be a little bit of a drive there. So the way to combat that is to get some people to speak into your life. And if you don't have anybody speaking into your life, that's probably indicative of your leadership style, right? You're an island. Um, Two is, I would say you have to get very clear about your big why. I'm a big why guy. I know that you have your personal mission statements. Like my big why, what gets me out of bed in the morning, is to lead and influence others such that they can live a life and leave a legacy bigger than they ever dreamed of. Like that's what gets me out of bed every single day.
Yep.
And when I can nail those things, um, that's what keeps me going when it's hard. And we've had plenty of hard times as a team and an organization. Um, and so I think you need to get very, very deep and clear about who you are and what you want in this life. Because until you can identify that, you can't help somebody else identify that. In addition to that, I think where leaders fail the most is, and Gary talks about it, he says, you've got to be okay with the mundane of the boredom until you can connect to the results.
Yep.
And that's a big one is, and you know this better than I do, like building businesses is repetitious boredom.
It is.
It's just, there's no way to get around it. It is repetitious boredom. So become okay with repetitious boredom. And I promise you, eventually you will see the results.
Yeah. Man, I think you nailed the answer to that question. Is I think I get so many entrepreneurs and teams and agents calling me right now saying, I need more leads. I need more of this. I need more sales, or my sales are down.
Yeah.
And most time what they think they need, they might need those things, but those will come secondarily to you growing your leadership and culture. So I love that comment you made, that everything rises and falls with leadership.
Yep.
And people are scared to have that self accountability conversation of like, how am I really doing from a leadership standpoint? And even if you're a solo agent or you're your own boss, like you are still your own leader. Like it still is
Yep.
the same question, whether you're leading other people or leading yourself, is, am I the leader that my organization needs right now? And if not, how do I close that gap?
And that's the first step of that is humility. Like my mentor, Anthony Azar, his dad told him this, and I got the honor of hearing it from him. He said, you can be right or you can be rich. Very seldom can you be both.
Mm.
And I love that, is we will often go broke and fail to prove that we are right with something. Yeah. Versus going, what's in the best interest of the organization as a whole, and then I'm going to adapt my leadership style for that.
Yeah, man, that's so good. This is something I've been writing a leadership academy course right now, because I'm so on just the same thought process right now of the majority of the problems inside people's organizations will be handled by all of us elevating our leadership.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So I'm really excited about rolling out that leadership academy this fall.
Yeah. Everybody building each other up together. And as a leader, you have to make your world big enough so that people want to stay in it.
Yeah, I love that. All right, so as we wrap up our conversation here, man, I've got some really good bullet points here. That one of my favorite things about doing these podcasts is as I'm having these conversations, I'm making these notes of myself, and then I keep a journal of nothing but the conversations I have here, so I can go back and like reflect on these of like, okay, what I learned and what am I going to do about it. So I hope that all of our listeners heard some bullet points that stood out to them today too, and I encourage you to do the same, as reflect on those and implement them in your world. So as we start to wrap up, a couple things, Chase. One is, if somebody wants to learn more about you, wants to learn from you, like what's the best way to follow you, get in contact with you?
Yeah, it's a couple ways. Is email is Chase at teamintegritytucson, TUCSON.com. My cell phone number is 520-909-3085. And then social media for Instagram and everything is at Chase Delperdang.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. And then what are the last pieces of wisdom or advice that you'd want to leave with our group before we wrap up here?
Yeah, I would say invest in yourself. Like we don't, it's amazing as leaders, we often don't want to invest in a coach. We'll invest in leads, we'll invest in everything else, but we won't invest in ourselves. And really becoming okay with who you are as a leader. Like read different leadership books, listen to leadership talks, so on and so forth. But identify who you are as a leader, and don't try to lead like somebody else does, because it'll come off as inauthentic. So find out who you are. Go through that process of identifying who you are as a person and as a leader. And the best leader you can be is the one that has your DNA on it, not one that you read out of a book.
Yeah. Oh, I think that's so true. And that's the beauty. Like, I look at the most influential leaders in my world. They all weren't the exact same person. They all didn't have the exact same impact. It was that they were they grew their authentic leadership,
Yes,
which happened to be impactful for me at that specific time.
and it's
What great
attractive.
advice.
It's attractive to people when you are you.
Yep. All right, Enchilada Nation. I hope you guys found as much much value from this conversation as I did. Just a couple bullet points that stood out to me that I really love is the cues and clues. Is I'm going to spend some time to say this is how I predefined my culture, but now let me put my Sherlock Holmes hat on for a second and ask myself, what are the cues and clues saying that my culture is? And if those don't match, something's wrong inside my organization. Whether I didn't predefine it right, or I just somehow don't have the leadership, the systems, the culture happening in a way that the cues and clues are showing up. Second one, I love that you talked about credible buy-in, how important it is to grow your leadership. Culture is produced over time with trust. Memories are made in the margins. So all of us are so busy, but what are those little marginal moments that you're creating impactful moments with the people inside and outside your organization? And then everything that we talked about today rises and falls on your commitment to your leadership. But those were my big takeaways from our conversation, Chase. Again, thank you so much for being here. One, thank you for being a guest, but I'm really also grateful for the friendship and look forward to continuing to learn from you and grow that friendship.
Absolutely. Me too.
All right, Enchilada Nation, don't forget, go live life on your terms.